Hello, welcome back to the Brand Is You podcast. This is part two of behind the scenes of an entrepreneurial mama's and woman's beings life. We're in part two. Thank goodness part one is over. So if you listened to part one, then you will remember that there were a series of pretty challenging events that I went through that just sort of like stacked one on top of the other. And they sort of kept coming like these waves, the tide just would not go out. And I was actually on a walk with a friend this morning, my dear friend first, but also my integrative health coach. And you're going to meet her on the podcast soon, actually, because she's been a big part of this journey and support for me. So Jess and I were on a walk this morning, and she was like, "Man, you had such a huge year." And she was like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't think I was there for you the way that I could have been, but also you seemed okay." And before I get into episode two, which is much more exciting and positive and adventurous, I will say. But before I get into it, I want to say, so many of us are trained in survival. We are able to make it through hard times because we have to. Whether you have been through traumatic experiences previously in your life that trained you to become this warrior, whether you were taught to keep things inside, not talk about them, not share them or show them, because to show struggle is a weakness, or there's no space for you to move through these times of hardship, whether you were not supported or whether you just don't feel safe to share your heart. I want you to know that I see you. And this skill of, surviving and making it and getting through is a really valuable skill. Resilience is so powerful in life, in business, in relationships, in motherhood, in finances. Resilience gets us through hard times. And resilience can also mean that when we need help the most, we can't receive it because our resilience overcompensates for the connection, the care, the nurturing, the nourishing, the healing, the conversations, the support that we truly need to not just get through, to not just push through the thing, but to really heal through it. Right? So, was I okay? Yeah. I mean, I was okay. But was I good? Certainly not. Was I myself? Not often. And, through every single event that compounded on the next, I found myself losing more and more and more and more and more of myself. And that's a scary thing for someone like me who lives and breathes authenticity and expression and truth and communication and storytelling and heart-to-heart connection. I just felt so isolated. And so in this like period of life, and we all have these periods of life where we need to survive. And in my period of survival, one of the things that I was so shocked by was truly how disconnected I became from myself, right? Like, who am I now? Was a serious question that I asked myself over and over and over again, particularly after the miscarriage, because I had been manifesting that baby for so damn long. If I am not a mother of 3 kids, like I see so clearly in my vision, then who am I now? If I am not the successful entrepreneur who has scaled and grown her business to 7 figures by the end of 2024, Who am I now? If I am not a woman whose marriage is on the struggle bus and, it needs to constantly have these healing therapy sessions, like, who am I now? Who am I as a loved, happy woman of two with a business that's in the works, that's still being developed? Who am I now? And this question kept presenting itself, and I kept sitting with it. And for so long, I did not have an answer. Scary. It's scary not to know who you are anymore. It's scary not to feel like yourself. It is scary to feel this separation inside that's like, hey, like, we knew each other once. We were on the same page once. We supported each other once. You set the goal and then I helped you get there. You had the dream and then I did the thing, right? We tend to rely on ourselves. But if we don't know who we are, if we don't know where we're going, then the version of ourselves, the part of ourselves that wants to get shit done, that wants to move the needle forward, that wants to keep going and growing, doesn't have anywhere to go. Because this part of you that's driving the bus, typing in the directions, informing the GPS is like, I don't know. I don't know where we're going. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I like or what I want. I don't know what I want the business to look like, or if I even want the business anymore. I don't know what type of mom I am if I'm not that mom. I don't know what type of relationship I really want if I don't have that relationship. I don't know. And this feeling of not knowing is so deeply uncomfortable, particularly, friends, if you're a control freak like me, self-admitted control freak. We're gonna anchor that one right into the childhood trauma that had me, needing to be in control to protect myself. But we don't need to go there today. But a control freak, a visionary, a doer without direction, without connection to self, is really, really, really that lost puppy, that you're like, oh, honey, where's your home? Where do you live? You don't have a collar on. Doesn't look like you have an owner. Where's your house? And that was me, friends. By the end of all of these events, I started to feel myself like spiral down a little bit, like, okay, it's okay. We're landing back. And as I sat in the place of coming back, this journey back to myself didn't happen as fast as I wanted it to. I thought that as soon as these events were over, I thought as soon as, each one of these significant happenings in my life kind of came to a close, I was like, okay, whew, there we go. Like, let's get back on the horse and keep riding. But it wasn't like that. And so this period of being really, really just emptied out, really, really having of like moved through all of these things, left me in this place of like, all right, girl, you need to get reacquainted. You got to figure out, like, who are we now? Without pressure, without stress, without need, but actually just from a place of like desire to know yourself, desire to know who I am now, desire to know where I want to go, desire to have clarity, desire to create a new way forward for myself. And in that, for my family, for my kids, for my marriage, for my community, for my clients. So I was just starting to feel this sense of, okay, stability. Like, we've got our feet on the ground. And my initial instinct was, like I said, get back on the horse, which for me means like, show the fuck up in your business, Rob. Hello. You launched this academy, stopped marketing it. You stopped selling anything publicly, workshops, courses, programs, stopped doing anything for free. I just stopped selling in general. So I was like, okay, let's get it back. Remember that 3-month financial buffer that I talked to you about in episode 1? Yeah, that was long gone by now. So we're like, we gotta go. We got things to do. And yet, this voice, this part of me that was supposed to be giving direction, had nothing to say. And every time I asked her, the only thing I received in response was crickets. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry. Not today. Not tomorrow either. Not next Monday when you plan on, getting back to the podcast, or not next Friday when you want to launch the thing, or not even next month when you have that new, fresh, revived income goal. Nope. And I just kept waiting. And you know what the only thing was that kept coming through to me was this. So this has a little bit of a backstory. So stick with me. So my family lives in Ontario. And when I was 23 years old, I moved from Ontario out west to follow my husband because I was so madly in love and he couldn't stand being in Ontario. His home was out in Whistler. Quit my job, left my family, all my best friends, left my apartment, like furnished, like left it just there, just like got on a plane and moved in with him immediately. And I really just like settled into a life. And I know you know this about me. I love to travel. I love to pursue adventure. And I always wanted to explore BC. I always wanted to see more of this beautiful province. And then once I had babies, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to take them on road trips. I'm going to have an RV. You remember the RV days, right? I'm going to take them on the RV. I'm going to camp. I'm going to just like live in this beautiful place and call it home. But also like explore the places that I don't call home and like seek the beauty. I'm going to go be in the beauty. Well, then I started businesses and the businesses consumed my time. My husband is a golf pro. So he works like a crazy man in the summers. Like he's not around very often in the summers. He definitely can't take trips. So every summer, I would be like, this is my summer. I'm going to go on this big trip. But my family lives back home and I have these 2 babies and all these nieces and nephews back home and my dad and my stepmom, and I wanted to see them. So every summer, rather than pursuing adventure, I went home to see my family, right? I did the right thing. I did the desired thing from everyone else's perspective. I did the thing that I thought that I should. And do not get me wrong, we made so many amazing memories. We had so much positive, good time at home with my family. But every summer, I would get to the end of the summer and feel like, and let me know if this feeling resonates with you, but I would get to the end of the summer and be like, cool, Rob, you chose the same thing again. And you didn't pursue the thing that you really wanted to pursue. You didn't follow the dream. You didn't go on the adventure. And another summer would go by and this exact same conversation would happen. Like we're talking again and 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 again. And I was like, oh my God. And one thing to know about me is like repeated conversations without action just drive me fucking nuts. Like if you're going to complain about something, change the goddamn thing. So this summer, like, family, I love you. I love our time together. I'm not coming home. I'm going to go on an adventure with my kids. So I'm sitting here as a woman, completely directionless in my life, really just starting to get my inspiration back in my business, really just feeling like, okay, we could start to sell again. We have energy, we have the need to make money now. We have the desire to show back up. We have the stamina, the energy to do the things. And I've now made this promise to myself that I'm going to take my kids on this adventure because I've been saying it for so damn long that if I hear myself say it one more time without doing it, I'm going to literally chop my own head off, right? That's where we're at. So in having this like still very present disconnect from myself, like, okay, we have to move forward and we have to get there, but like, what is that? What is that? What does it even look like? What are we selling? How do we want to move forward? Without having those answers, it all of a sudden became very clear to me that this adventure with my kids was what I needed in order to get clarity. Now, I want you to listen to something because a lot of us bang our heads against the wall to create a piece of content. We sit in front of our computers, spreadsheets, Word docs, emails, waiting for the answer, waiting for clarity to come through. But clarity needs space. Clarity requires exiting the noise so that you can actually hear yourself, so that you can see things from a different perspective, right? So I needed clarity. And I knew suddenly, like, oh my God, Rob, holy shit, you got to go. You got to get offline. You've got to take these kids into the middle of nowhere and do the thing that you've said you were going to do for 5 years in a row. And you need to be brave and you need to trust that this is the thing that you all need the most right now. So I tell my husband, babe, you know, I'm going to take this trip. And he's like, okay, cool. Yeah, sounds great. Like, no, I'm going to take this trip. Cool. Yeah, no. Yeah, cool. He's also heard this 5 years in a row. Thank you very much. So by now we're like, yeah, okay, that chick cries wolf, like believing none of it. So we're halfway through the summer. I have nothing booked, nothing planned. And my story is I'm taking this trip. I'm doing it. So halfway through July, I block off 2 weeks, late November, or sorry, I block off 2 weeks, late August. I'm not sure yet where I'm going to go. Really, I have an idea. I haven't booked ferries, hotels. I haven't told my team yet. I've mentioned it to my kids, but I've told Dunk for sure I'm doing this thing. Okay. And honestly, at this point in time, I'm not even sure that I believe myself, like I do, but I don't, but I do, but I don't, but I don't, but I do. So the date starts approaching and I'm like, oh my God, I'm really going to do this. I'm going to unplug for 2 weeks. I'm going to pack my kids up in my 2017 Santa Fe that has no reverse camera, no air conditioning in the middle of the summer. And I'm just going to drive. I'm going to take them on a 10-hour ferry across the ocean into the middle of buttfuck nowhere without cell reception, without any idea where we're going to go. I had no campsites booked. I had the ferry booked. The night before I left, I booked a motel that turned out to be disastrous, but we won't get into that. Like I was really just giving myself full permission to fucking wing it. And I did. Packed up the car, packed up my kids, and the adventure itself was life-changing. But I want to talk for a second about what it took to get me there. Okay? Because I am, to no one's surprise, not the planner in my life. Like I don't book our family flights. I don't plan family meals. I don't book the hotels. I don't look at when the passports expire. I'm not that person. My husband is that person. I love him so dearly for it. We make a great team in that regard. But this time, without him coming, without him, like even wanting him to really play that role, I realized like this trip was about more than just an adventure. It was really about experiencing myself as the leader, the independent woman in my life that I really longed to be. Like, can you trust yourself to take this trip? Can you trust yourself to take your kids into grizzly bear country and survive? Can you trust yourself not to run out of gas in the middle of nowhere where there's no GPS to just bing, look up the closest gas station? Can you allow yourself to book the things, to trust that where you're going is safe and comfortable and right? Not to mention, I hadn't been making money for like 6 months now. So I also wasn't going on this trip with just like thousands of dollars to throw at things. I was financially conscious. I planned it on an extremely tight budget, and I gave myself the responsibility to get it done, to really be the one who could take care of not only myself, but of the logistics of my kids, of every single meal that we cooked on a single burner stove off a picnic table from a cooler that stayed in the front seat of my car for 2 weeks, right? Like, can I trust myself? Can I be here for me? And if you remember in episode 1, I really talked about this idea of like not abandoning myself, like staying with myself through the challenge, staying with myself through the heartbreak, staying with myself through the pain, coming back to myself time and time again. And this trip for me was like this moment of like, hey, girl, you've got you. This is the type of woman you are now. This is the type of mom you are now. This is the type of businesswoman that you are now. The type of woman who does what she says she's going to do. The type of woman who can be fully present and responsible for her kids, not only health and safety in the wilderness, but also for their fun and their feelings and their experience. And the businesswoman who can be offline, who can unplug and trust that her business won't fall apart. Hey, girl, this is you now. This is what you've been working towards. You've got this. We've got this. And suddenly, as I started to make these decisions, these parts within myself, the captain driving the ship and the me that could execute it and get it done, started to find their way back to each other. And they started to really work together. And I started to feel momentum in my body again. Like, okay, we're doing this. All right, we've got this. I started to feel excitement again. I started to anticipate and dream. And I hadn't felt that in so fucking long that I really started to feel these elements of my being come back to me. Like, oh my God, do you know how good it feels to feel excited after a year or almost of like pure depression and heartbreak? Do you know how good it feels to like feel yourself starting to emerge after a like complete season of not knowing who you are anymore? I mean, I was ecstatic. So I went on this trip. Okay. I book the things, I do the things. My car is loaded to the tits. Like, you can't breathe in that thing. I was so organized. I did everything the way that I wanted it to be done so that I knew exactly where all the snacks were, all the charging wires, all of the, directions that I had printed out. I knew everything meticulously. And my husband helped, but honestly, it was me. Like, I did it. And I think he sort of purposely stepped back also in a lot of this because he could see me taking charge and feeling the growth that I was experiencing and having this experience on my own. So bless him for being so supportive. Who the fuck lets their wife take their kids into grizzly country? You know? My husband did, because he also learned to trust me. He also, has learned over the years that when I say I'm going to do something, I do something. He knows that I could. He knew that I could. And I started to like feel that same trust in myself. Like, oh, he's not freaking out. Why is he not out. I mean, our friends were freaking out. Like I had so many friends be like, Rob, I've done that trip. I'm not sure if this is the right trip for you and the girls. Do you know what a 10-hour ferry across like the open ocean is like with two girls that get car sick? Are you sure? Why are you doing this? You know, do you know, Rob, that there's nothing out there? I'm like, yep, got it. Yep, Roger that. Yep, hear you. Doing it anyways. Thank you so much. We'll be doing this anyways. So I started to build this sense of self-trust. And so I'm on this trip. Okay, I spend like 2 weeks working my ass off to prepare for being unplugged. I have clients. I need to get these projects done so that I can really be offline. I also batched content for my own brand and business, and I ran an experiment. What does this look like for me to be unplugged while my team is posting on socials? Let's play a little bit. So I run this experiment, which is totally like me, by the way. Ooh, let's just learn more, right? So I'm like, okay, so I run this experiment, I work my ass off for these 2 weeks, and I get on the trip. And at this point in time, I have absolutely no idea what it is going to be like for me to be unplugged. I mean, I haven't unplugged in 10 years, guys, like really fully in 10 years. So I'm kind of freaking out. I'm tripping balls a little bit, being like, what if I unplug and it's just me and my kids and I fucking hate it? What if I can't stand the level of presence that I think that I want? What if I'm annoyed and bored and agitated because work is so much of who I am? What if I meet this version of myself on this trip that is supposed to be beautiful and loving and adventurous? And what if I get there and I am like, I fucking hate this? So I'm kind of scared for myself a little bit before I take this trip, okay? And day one, I delete the Instagram app and I instantly feel this sense of like, huh, that was easy. Like, too easy? Why was that so easy? So I delete the app. I officially tell my team, like, that's it for me. Offline, later, Gators, you know. Tell my kids, guys, I'm like signed off. And you know, what I kind of expected to happen was this period of discomfort. You would think, right? Like I'm totally addicted to these apps, just like so many of us are. It's silly to say that I'm not. Of course I am. I'm addicted to the dopamine of selling stuff, of connecting with you, of hearing your feedback. I'm addicted to the dopamine of getting things done. Like, yes, accomplished task. Who am I without accomplishing tasks? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. So I'm like, okay, there's going to be this like period of discomfort. Nada. Not a single second of discomfort. I actually found it so easy to unplug. I found it so easy to pull my hands off the wheel and just be like, cool, whatever happens, happens. And I'm not going to lie to you. What happened beyond that was even more shocking to me because what I imagined was that my kids would go to bed in the tent and then I would stay up in my, you know, like creative vibes and my creative witchcraft, like writing and conceptualizing and strategizing through the night. Like, oh my gosh, I came home with this whole new business plan. I came home with this whole new awareness. I came home and babe, I like know what the future holds for us. But do you know what actually happened? Get this. I went to bed every single night holding my baby's hands, singing them, can't help falling in love with you. I can't help falling in love with you every single night until the grips of their little hands fell off my fingers because they were fast asleep. Every single night of that trip, I sang them to sleep, holding both of their little hands under the stars, right beside the Bella Coola River. Our tent had this window, so you could just hear everything. It just felt like we were in nature, like not around it, not surrounded by it, but like in it. Which in grizzly country is also slightly terrifying. So yes, I slept with a knife under my pillow every night because what the fuck? A grizzly versus a tent? Like, who's gonna win? So I was terrified, but I was so alive and I was so present and I was so fulfilled that every night I just soaked in that feeling with them, remembering what we did that day, remembering the conversations, remembering their faces and the smells. We did so much, you guys. We wandered to places that we just felt like wandering. No plan, no need to be anywhere. Just us, backpacks full of sandwiches and bear spray and water bottles and maps because no cell service, so no GPS, just good old-fashioned maps. And we stopped on those trails and we read every single sign, learning about the trees, 1,000-year-old trees standing beside them. We wandered off the trail one day and found a beach and we all took our clothes off. What the heck? My daughters don't do that anymore. They're 8 and 6 and they've started covering their bodies and they just took their clothes off and they're like, Mom, can we do this? I'm like, of course. And we just got naked and sat and basked in the sun watching the river. My daughter came up with this game on like day 2. I purposely left all of our toys. They had like books and stickers. I brought all of the craft equipment. Okay. I mean, I brought all of the supplies like canvases, easels, paintbrushes, stickers, journals, markers. Like I had all the craft supplies, but toys, I don't do toys. So, like, no, thank you. But my daughter picked up a plastic shovel one day and a small bucket and she started playing hockey. She never played hockey before in her life. I don't even think she knows what hockey really, truly, genuinely is. A sport, sure, but like, you know, the rules, the concept. She starts to play this game that resembles hockey. And she uses the shovel as her hockey stick. And she kicks this little bucket around trying to get a goal in a tree trunk. There's a little gap in the tree trunk. I'll share videos of this on my social media this week, so go check it out. We played this game every single day. She played for hours. And then we would play together, try and score against each other. And I will never forget shovel hockey. So at night, rather than being in my business or trying to get clear, trying to figure out who I am, I just sat with who I am. Like, oh my God, I'm the mom who packs canvases and easels and sets up an entire art station on the beach. That's who I am. Oh my God, I'm the mom who can laugh and compete in a game of shovel hockey. What? For hours. Oh, that's who I am. I'm the woman who sings her children to sleep while she holds their hand in nature, while fear and love both exist at the same time. Oh my God, this is who I am. I've been trying so hard to find myself that I couldn't actually see or feel the truth of who I am or was anymore. So not one time on that trip did I journal about my work. Not once did I strategically plan anything or look ahead or map anything out or get clearer or refine or write anything that had to do with work. Not one time. And if you know me, then you know that that is a huge deal for me. And the crazy thing was that I didn't even try to do that. It just happened. So my daughters and I had the best trip of our lives. And on day 6 of that trip, we were falling asleep And Wave says to me, Mom, this has been the best 2 weeks of my life. Thank you. Like, thank you for being this mom. I I love this mom. I need this mom. Thank you. There were so many moments on the trip that they thanked me, like so many. And this moment, though, in particular, I thought to myself, damn, it's day 6, and you think it's been 2 weeks. How cool that the amount of presence that we have with each other has stretched time for you. Wave knows the days of the week. She's in grade 3. She like plans out her month better than I do. Mom, don't forget I have cross country on the 22nd. Like, oh yeah, okay, girl, it's in my calendar. It's not in my calendar. Like, Wave knows. And so for her to lose track of time, to allow herself to lose track of time because we had lost ourselves fully in this trip together was the most beautiful gift that I could have given any of us in this season of life. You know, going back to the miscarriage for a second, the night before I lost that baby, I had a bath with my girls. And if you've been in my community for a while, you know, like I love bathing with my kids. It is like, it's been a ritual since it was just Wave and I. We have beautiful baths. So the night before I lost the baby, we had a bath together. And the whole bath, I'm not making this up. It's going to sound like a contrived story. You've just got to believe me. They were like, Mom, are you having a baby? Is there a baby in your tummy? And I will say that my tummy was bloated. I have a small frame and this was my 4th pregnancy. So I think my body's memory, you know, my uterus was just like, oh, I know what to do now. And so I did have this little pouch that was obvious on my like small frame. And I know that also sounds unbelievable, but I'm not fucking kidding. So we're in this bath naked and the girls have their hands on my tummy and they're like, Mom, is there a baby in there? They're like placing bets. We talk about whether it would be a boy or a girl. And I didn't answer them. Like I didn't want them to know. It was a really hard time. My husband and I were like trying to figure it out, you know? So I didn't want to celebrate yet. And I was holding it so close. And I just found out like, 2 weeks ago or something. So they're like, Mom, you have a baby, you have a baby. I'm like, oh my God. But then the next morning I woke up in a pool of blood. I'm sorry to be so frank, but that's what happened, right? Well, many of us have this really sad but real experience. So I'm just going to be honest about it. The next morning I wake up in a pool of blood and I've miscarried. And my daughters never knew that I was pregnant, but they knew, like I really genuinely believe that they knew. And this trip, for me, being fully present with them felt like this, piece of closure. Like it's just us, babes. Like it's the 3 of us. And my girls and I call ourselves the Mermicorn Bolts. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Mermicorn Bolts. It's a mix of mermaid and unicorn, Mermicorn, and bolts because lightning bolts. Hello, I love them, right? So we call ourselves the Mermicorn Bolts, and we have this cheer that we do everywhere we go, and the girls are always like, Mermicorn Bolts. And this whole trip was just Mermicorn Bolts. Like it's you and me. Like it is the 3 of us for life. And it was this closure that I needed to give myself to them completely. Like there's no one else. Our family is complete and I am complete and I can do this and I can be responsible and I can do hard things. I am complete. We are complete. This is it. This is your life. And without work and without forcing myself to have to do more or have to get clear or have to envision or have to strategize, being all there set me up, the future version of myself up for what was to come. And what was to come after that, after this trip, oh my gosh, was everything that I had been waiting for. So I'm going to share that in the next episode. I'm going to get into, there was a book that I read that changed my fucking life. I'm going to share some excerpts from it. And I'm going to tell you what happened next, because this trip for me was like a huge turning point in my life. It was like that transformational before and after moment that like, all right, girl, you did it. First of all, like driving home from that trip, it was an 8-hour drive, okay? Just a casual 8-hour drive over the most treacherous mountain pass in Canada, I think, if not BC. It had a like, it had no rails, no sidewalk. It was a giant drop off, and it had poured rain the night before. My girls and I were in this tent. The entire community that was at the campground came together to help us put up like 12 tarps over our tent. It was so beautiful. I was crying tears of gratitude. And they all like put these tents together, like, or these tarps together so that our tent wouldn't collapse in the torrential downpour. I was not prepared for torrential downpour. Hello, it's like mid-August. It was supposed to be bright and sunny. And so all these community members helped us. So we got through this torrential downpour, and there were these like moments of, just like, I did it. I did it. And as I was driving over the Heckman's Pass, I sobbed my eyes out. Like, what the fuck am I doing? What if we fall off this cliff and we all die? Like, what am I doing? Where is Duncan? Like, why am I doing this alone? So many of these moments. So on the final stretch of this drive home, I just sobbed tears of pride. Like, you did it. You fucking did it. Girl, what? And all of these scenes from our trip, the 10-hour ferry ride, like, it was so fun. We had the best time. I had so many people coming up to us being like, wow, you are here solo with your kids. What the fuck are you doing? Like old retired people that had this trip on their bucket list for 20 years. And there I am with my two kids on the, ferry deck, basking in the sun, doing yoga, coloring. The girls were like doing my hair and all these crazy, like we were just living, and everyone could see it and feel it. And I had so many people coming up to me, just like, wow, this is so cool. And I had all of these memories just like flooding back to me as I was driving home, these final 2 hours, and which were the longest 2 hours of the entire trip, by the way. And I was so, so taken aback by this feeling of pride. And, I've accomplished a lot in my life, a lot of them being, accomplishments related to material success that I thought defined my value for a long time. Like, cool, I can build a business from the ground up and make 6 and 7 figures. And like, I know how to do that. I'm an accomplished woman. I got married and bought a house. I'm an accomplished woman. I bought a car with cash. I'm an accomplished woman. But this trip cost us peanuts. Our campsite was literally $17 a night. We ate out of a cooler. We had peanut, like it was not fancy. I didn't accomplish anything on this trip except for presence and love. And I met myself, and I let myself be free, and I played and I laughed. And when I yelled at my kids, we had talks about it, and we hugged and we cried, and we watched the sunset, and we sat in the pouring rain, and we fished. We made friends. We lived. And those things gave me more sense of pride than any other thing that I have accomplished or checked off my list to date in my life. And that feeling will never leave me, because not only did I give myself permission to go for it, to try it, to trust myself, but I also was there with myself every single step of the way. I've got you. You're afraid? I've got you. You're crying tears of gratitude? Cry those tears, girl. I've got you. You feel lonely? You want your husband here? Oh, girl, I've got you. Your kids are driving you fucking nuts in the back seat? Yeah, girl. I've got you. I've got you. I've got you. I've got you. And driving home, this feeling of pride really gave me what I needed to pursue the next chapter. So that's it for this episode. I mean, I have so many stories to share with you from this trip. It's insane. And I hope to, over time, so many of them are so special. Oh my God. Like a million Hallmark cards, you know? But for now, I want you to know that this trip changed my life. And if there's something that you've been putting off in fear of your business falling apart, in fear of your partner not supporting you, in fear of fear itself, in fear of, it going wrong, in fear of, like there were so many challenges on this trip, but the challenges made it right. My daughter pissed the mattress one night. I had to drive 45 minutes into town to get 20 loonies, loonies, to do laundry, to wash the air mattress. And when I went to scrub her fleece sleeping bag in the river to get it clean of the pee, guess what? I rubbed the sleeping bag in dead fish. Dead fish. So the smell of that sleeping bag was horrendous. It took me all day, 12 hours, to clean the tent, to complete the laundry, to drive into town, to get the 20 loonies, to then put the air mattress in the sun and change the direction of the air mattress so that it could continue to soak up the sun for hours so that it would dry right before the torrential rainstorm hit that night. Thank you. Yeah, that night. So there were challenges and there were tears, like tears on the phone to Dunk, like, what the fuck am I doing? So if there's something that you're putting off because you're afraid of the challenge, no, you can do it. We can do it. And when you learn to trust yourself and pursue what you want, even though you're afraid, even though you're not sure if you can, you will come back to yourself and you will see what you're capable of, and you will go to the places and have the experiences and meet the people and have the moments that are meant for you. So if there's something that you're putting off because it's not the right time, or you're afraid, or you're not sure how, or but what about the money? There is a way. And I want you, or I invite you to sit with that way. I want you to give yourself permission, yeah, to go, to be. And if you're in a season where you're looking for clarity, I promise you that when you go, clarity will find you there, in the spaciousness, in the abundance of time that you are not allowing yourself. In the moments in between the doing is where the answers await you. I love you. Part 3 of this is exciting, and I can't wait to go there with you. So part 3 will be released on Friday, and I will see you there. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so that you're alerted of each release of the new episode, and go leave a review. If you love these stories, please drop a comment. It helps me get this podcast and these stories out to more people who need them. It helps me do what I do when you help me grow. So I'm asking you a favor, and I know you're busy, but it will only take you 2 minutes. So subscribe to the podcast. Please leave a review. Share this with your friends if there's something in here that you think they need to hear. And I will see you right back here this Friday. I love you. Bye.